Okay, we are recording our webinar and we are about to get started here. We will do some introductions and I'm guessing as people are logging in that most of you have probably done by this time some type of a virtual workshop. You know about the menu bar at the bottom, but if you don't, there's a Q&A and a chat feature, and we are encouraging you to put your questions in the chat because the chat is recorded and you can copy it and you can copy the questions and the answers. So when you open the chat, there is right at the top, it says to, and then there's a little caret by that word. If it says to host and panelists, if you could change that to everyone, and then we can everyone can see your questions and the answers. And then you can copy that at any time, just do a Control All or just copy whatever part you want. Because that won't show up, I don't think, in the final version. We are recording and it will be put up online on the city's YouTube channel for later viewing. And I think that's all I need to give in housekeeping. So I'm Janda, I'm the coordinator at the EnviroHouse, and Jenny Call, who's on my screen anyway, above me, will be doing the presentation. If you have questions or want something clarified, do put that in the chat. And then if Jenny watches it really closely, so I usually don't get a chance to pop up and tell her, but if need to, I'll just put myself on the screen and let her know. Oh, and this is recording. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know it was doing that. Okay, so Jenny, I will let you tell about yourself and then we will get started with the webinar. And if you are a city employee and you're looking for the credits, I hope to have this up really soon so that you can do that before the end of our wellness program for this year. So Jenny.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I am Jenny Call, and I am a public school educator here in Pierce County. I also have a degree in sustainable agriculture. I grew up here in Pierce County and in Fife when it was all beautiful farm fields. I have a passion for sustainable agriculture and, you know, sustainable living in general. I have a farm in Midland, and this, sharing with people how to really dig in and into their gardens and into their yards so they can be more sustainable is just such a wonderful, lovely thing to do. And so I am glad to be here for you today. I am representing Garden Sphere. Garden Sphere is located in Proctor on North 34th. I've been there for 10 years. I love it there. They're a wonderful family, and they're super knowledgeable. Everybody there is super knowledgeable, so they can help you with anything you need. Today, we're talking about winterizing your garden, what to plant in the garden, all the winterizing things we're going to do. A lot of those things really, September and October are the months to do it. So I'll share with you my slideshow. And then also, if you have any questions, there are no wrong questions or bad questions or all questions are good questions. And if you happen to have a tip, put that in the chat as well. Make sure to type it into the chat. I do check it periodically. I try to be good about it. But that is super, super helpful. And I will try to address your questions as they come up. Because I like to think of us as a community of learners and facilitators for all of this. So the varying levels of experience is always up in the air, and we can always share those resources. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. So we've got winter food gardens, yay, which we love. I'm going to put this chat right down here. Oops, sorry about that. I don't have my mouse today, so I am using that trackpad is a little bit tricky sometimes. So I'm going to put that down there. And so we're going to do prep, plants, cover crops, and mulch. And fall is one of my favorite seasons. I love that transition from summer to fall. You can feel the crisp air and all of those changes. So as we go through this, we're going to start out with cleaning out and preparing your garden bed, adding nutrients. Then we'll kick into picking plants and starts and seeds for your winter garden, and then talking about mulching the area. Later on, we'll talk about winterizing some of your perennials as well, your edible perennials, and talk about kind of the importance of that and how can you really maximize and really secure your plants for our cold winters. We're starting to get those really cold spells. So it's going to be the outline of our presentation today, the webinar today. So cleaning out is the first step, right? So say you had a garden all summer long and your zucchini plants are getting powdery mildew and your tomato plants are starting to get black spot, and things are kind of dying down, your corn is done, all these things are petering out, your green beans are not producing anymore and they're just kind of hanging out. Some of the ones that got too big are just kind of hanging out. You're going to want to start anything that is diseased. You're going to want to take out of that garden space, because you don't want it to be settling in to then come back the next year, or at least it reduces that pressure on your spring garden. And then, you can use a lot of that summer green as a cover. Okay, when cultivating for starting your winter crop, if you're going to be doing some winter gardening, you're only going to cultivate, and cultivate means to work the soil loose and get it nice and fine and ready for planting your starts or your seeds. And you're only wanting to cultivate the small area in which you're going to plant. The rest of it you don't want to cultivate, because chances are, if you have been working in that garden and successful all year, chances are you have some great mycelia in there, you have some worms, you've got some critters that are in there, and we don't want to disturb them, because they're going to do some really good work for us through the winter, and we want them to be able to stay put. Okay. It's a really important part of the process. What I like is, with my corn stalks and my sunflower stalks, I cut them into about 18-inch chunks, sometimes 2-foot chunks, sometimes smaller if I'm feeling like I need a little bit smaller. And I just put them right on top of my garden bed. I let them dry out completely. And then what happens is that in spring or early summer, you start getting these dry stalks. I chip those, or I break them up into smaller pieces, and that becomes my mulch for the summertime. So keeping those around is handy later on. Next couple of steps is going to be adding a little bit of organic fertilizer, worm casting, some compost. Add that into your bed. You're kind of getting it ready for that spring. You're getting it ready for feeding. You want to feed some of the critters and mycelia and things that are down there. So putting a nice layer of an organic fertilizer, preferably compost, worm casting, something a little bit chunkier, not the pelletized. It's okay, but something that's going to break down a little bit. So if you've started a compost bin for yourself, this is the perfect time to just kind of spread that out of the bigger chunks, because those bigger chunks are going to break down into the soil and it'll be fantastic for spring. So you're going to add that into your bed after you've cleaned out what you need. I would side dress. That means putting that compost next to the spaces that you've cultivated for those winter garden plants. And that way, as it rains, and it's going to, we've already had a little drizzle, it's going to, percolate that nutrients down into the root system for those winter plants, so they get a little bit of food too. It also keeps their area a little bit warmer as we get it cooler and cooler. And I know this morning it was quite cool. I put on a sweater when I was doing my morning chores. Thing you're going to want to think about is, what do you want to plant in that spot that you cultivated? You know, do you want to do seeds? Do you want to do from starts? You know, we're getting a little bit late for seed, but you know what? Last year I planted my carrot seeds at this time, and then I harvested carrots. They were wee carrots, but I harvested some carrots in February, March instead. I did let the others go to seed, so I'd have seed for the next season. But I did do that. At this point in the season, you'll have the most success with starts. Some seeds like leeks, onion, you could put those in. Those are biennials, and so they will come to fruition next summer, which is going to be great. So some of those seeds you can go ahead and put in now. You know, the parsley, throw it in there. You're going to have parsley coming up in spring. Okay, they're going to winter in and then come up in spring. I know my celery really liked that as well. So I would, if you really want that kick, say in December, okay, I would start with a start for the most success at this point. You know, for really giving it that extra oomph, that extra go, you know, where we don't need that hot heat. But if you do seeds, one of the things that you can do is you can put a nice cover over that seed bed that keeps it a little bit warmer, and you'll have more success that way. I'm going to check the chat, see if we have any questions. Oh, no questions yet. Please let me know if you need to have anything repeated. It's totally okay. Some of the things that you can put out in September, October, this is a great list. Okay, there are some really hardy lettuces out there. I know I was harvesting lettuce in December and January. I kept a nice hoop over it. That's when you use PVC piping, or you use a metal piping, and you create these hoops. And you do them quite low, so you're trapping in a lot of heat. And I make these hoops, and I do some UV protected agricultural plastic on top of that. And then I do a nice winter sheet blanket on top, a cover on top of that. And I was eating lettuce in December and January, and it was really refreshing to have fresh lettuce from the garden. And you can do that with your kales. And cabbages, cauliflowers, broccolis are all fantastic for winter. I feel that they get a little bit sweeter after we get that hard frost. They just get a little bit more zing, and they have a sweet aftertaste to them. They're not bitter. The Brussels sprout, we tend to start Brussels sprouts if we want them for a winter harvest. We tend to start those in July at a seed. But if you can find Brussels sprout starts right now, I know at Garden Sir we did have a few about a week or two ago, and putting those in is wonderful because you're going to get some Brussels sprouts. You're going to be harvesting those in January and February. Mustard, arugula, some of these things will die back after our first hardy frost, but if you've created a hoop for them to live under, you're going to eat those through the winter. It's wonderful. It's really refreshing. Green onions do fantastic in cool weather as well. Let's check. Looking good. All right. Some bulbs you can plant: garlic, shallots, daffodils, hyacinth, tulips, crocuses, irises, beautiful alliums. Now, garlic is part of that allium family. Lilies, snowdrops. Snowdrops are really short. They have these little white flowers. Bluebells, little short guys. A lot of these things you are going to plant in September and October. Now, you want to plant them before we have our first hard frost. The last couple of years, our first hard frost has been the third week in October. So you want to keep that in mind. You can plant it after that. We've had kind of variation. So sometimes it's about that, like last 2 years, it's been about the third week, but we've gone all the way into mid-November for that hard frost. So if you can get your bulbs in before the end of October, you'll be good. Garlic, you're going to get ahead of garlic, just like pictured there. Pull those cloves apart, and you're going to plant them with that. You'll see that little flat root base and then the tip. Okay, you're going to plant them about 2 inches below. and you're going to plant them you can go as close as a foot apart. You can even go 8 inches apart, depending on the variety. If you do elephant head garlic, you are going to want to do 12 inches apart. But the other ones, you could even squish it a little bit more and do 8 inches apart. But those absolutely do need to be planted in the fall, September, October, and you will harvest them at the about midpoint of July. You can harvest them as early as that last week of June. Kind of depends on what you're looking for. There are a couple different types of garlic. There's soft neck and there's hard neck. Hard neck, I feel, is really wonderful because it gets these beautiful garlic scapes on top of them. And then they produce a flower, which then the flower, once it opens, it kind of looks like little tiny mini garlics. Now, the garlic scapes, even before they open, you can eat them. And they're a wonderful addition to a stir fry, or you can put them in with a pot roast. A lot of different things you can do with those garlic scapes with a hard neck garlic. Now, hard neck garlic doesn't keep as long in storage, but you get that added bonus of that garlic scape at the top, and they are just lovely. Now, the soft neck, those are your stores. So if you like to store garlic for 6 to 9 months, depending on the variety, soft neck is the way to go. Now, you're not going to get those beautiful scapes to eat in the spring, but you are going to get garlic that once you pull it and cure it, then you are going to be able to store that and use that for a very long time until you're ready to until you're ready to harvest your next batch. It'll start going soft and brittle and start drying out about around May. So you'll have a couple months where you'll have to really, go garlicless. But the soft neck is the one that you're going to want to use if you are storing garlic. Now, one of the things that I don't mention is potatoes. Now, potatoes are a tuber. They're not a seed or a start, and they're not a ball. They're a tuber. And you absolutely can plant potatoes this time of year. You're going to want to find a place that does not have a high water table in winter because they will rot, or in a raised bed. Now, if you do that, you can harvest some potatoes in May, and you'll have these little baby new potatoes and in May and June when nobody else does. And the baby potatoes are just full of flavor. And so you can plant potatoes this time of year, especially if you planted potatoes this past spring. Take some of the potatoes you've harvested, take like a handful, right? And set them aside, cut those eyes, plant them out. Now you've got 2 seasons worth of potatoes. It's kind of a bonus. I always like to do that. I've got some red huckleberry that I'm going to be doing that with, and they're my favorite potato, and I'm going to put them in a raised bed because I have a very high water table here on our farm. And so putting them in the ground, they'll just rot, but I put them in a raised bed, and I love harvesting potatoes in late spring. So that's one that's not on here, and I always forget to put it on there, but it's a fun one to do. Check those questions. Cool. All right, we're looking good. All right, here we go.
I have a question. You dry potatoes a little bit before the pieces before you plant them, right? You don't plant them, just cut them and then stick them in the ground.
If they're a smaller potato, say they're like that big, right? I wouldn't cut it up. I would just put it in. Yeah, if it's a larger potato, of course, you're going to want to kind of maybe cut it in half. But because winter is colder and the soil tends to be a little bit of lower temperature, having those bigger pieces will ensure that it's not going to rot as quickly, or it'll have less of a chance to rot. That's a good question. Good question, Janda. All right. So what and why about mulch? Mulch is really, really important. So what is mulch? It's a layer of stuff that's on top of your soil surface, okay? After you've kind of cleaned out an area or you're winterizing an area, it's that layer of whatnots. So your layer of material on top of that, okay? Why do we mulch? Well, it keeps water in, it suppresses weeds, it improves the soil health, okay? Because as that mulch is sitting there, it's breaking down and that nutrients goes back into the soil, and then the worms and all the critters, they eat that stuff, and then it pops out nutrients for the roots to suck up, and you have really healthy plants. It protects the root system in the wintertime, right? It's like putting a blanket over, you're not going to sit outside and it be 40 degrees with your shorts and t-shirt on, right? You're going to put on a sweatshirt or a sweater or a jacket. You're going to have probably pants on and some socks. So think of it that way. You're putting a nice layer, a blanket over those roots to protect them, keep them a little bit warmer from the elements. Bulbs really like that a lot. Tubers, we just talked about potatoes. Yep, you're going to put those on top of your potatoes when you plant them. And it helps them from drying out too, because again, it's keeping that moisture in. Unless you have too much moisture like me, and I've got a high water table and I like it to dry out a little. Okay. All right, let me check if we've got any questions. No, I'm good. Things that mulch. Now this is kind of fun. You can get creative with this. So leaves, clearly, like if you have some deciduous trees in your yard, leaves are fantastic for mulching. Personally, I keep the leaves on my grass. I keep it everywhere. I will sweep them off of the driveway and the walkways, but I put them in because so many of our pollinators love to make houses in those. And you know what? I don't mind if there's a layer of leaves there. It really mulches well, and it's a natural mulch, and it'll break down pretty good by spring. Cardboard works great if you are, whether you're doing a raised bed or you're doing directly in a garden planting. When I clear out a bed, if I have enough cardboard, I will use cardboard, or I'll use burlap bags, and I cover it. My weeding in the spring goes down exponentially. I really like that a lot. Newspaper with soy-based ink, okay, that works great. Do a 3 or 4 layer in each section. Fantastic, right? It's going to get wet. It's going to very slowly let that water percolate down. Protects the space. Beetles and isopods or what some people call roly-polies. All of these things are going to live under there, and they are also going to be protected. Grass clippings. I use my grass clippings as a berm in our front yard. And I know that my garter snakes absolutely love it there. And I know they're probably going to hunker down for the winter in that berm of grass clippings. It really stays toasty in the grass clippings. So if you put grass clippings around things, you're going to definitely know that those root systems are staying very insulated. Wood shavings or small bark. I have a lot of chickens and waterfowl. And so I will use their bedding from in areas that I'm not growing any food from August through November, and I will continually put that bedding in those places. Again, totally helps with weed suppression. It also makes a nice blanket for that area, for that soil to stay protected. Now, the thing with that is the soil you don't want any open space, just soil out, because you're going to get erosion. You're going to have issues. Nothing's going to want to stay there because it's not protected in any way. The mycelia isn't going to want to hang out there, and that transmits nutrients and things to your different plants. And it really, you're going to have a lot of weeds and issues in an area if you're just doing that bare soil and you let it go through the whole winter. So if you do have fowl, putting those shavings out, plus you get the added bonus where those droppings, the feces are going to be curing during that time too. So by the time you're ready to plant, plant out in spring, you already have a really rich system happening there. It's cured long enough where it's not going to be hot, which means the nitrogen content has lessened. It's going to be really great, and you can just move that mulch away and plant your things, and you're already set for success. Straw. Now, I have a love-hate relationship with straw. Do not use hay. Hay has so many seed heads in it, right? Because it's food. Hay is food. And so that is food for our ruminants. Say, your sheep, your goats, various ruminants, cows, you've got the horses, things like that. And they need that. Well, those then create a really nice bed of hay for you in the spring. And that can be very problematic because then it's hunkered its roots in. If you let it go too long, it becomes very problematic trying to dig that stuff out. And so stick with straw. And if you can get low seed straw, there is, just know you're going to get some of those grasses seeding out, but there's going to be way less. And, it does create a really lovely blanket, a really great insulator for your winter vegetables or a bed that you're just putting to sleep. Check down here. All right, we've got a question. If I'm leaving a bed empty during the winter, should I add compost and then mulch or just mulch? You could do a layer of compost. I mean, why not, right? It's just, you're feeding stuff in there, and that, that just will leave less nutrient work in the spring. And then I would put a mulch on top. Yeah. And depending on what kind of mulch you're using, if you are using cardboard, absolutely. If you're using something that's not going to break down and put, is not a living mulch, you definitely do want to put compost underneath there. You don't necessarily have to if it's a living mulch, but, doubling up, it doesn't hurt. It does not hurt, because the more organic matter you have in your beds, the better it will do through the growing season. It'll hold water better. It'll keep a constant temperature for your root systems. Yeah, excellent question. And you really do want to make sure it's permeable, which means you're going to let that water go through it. That's why all of these are great. I use the nutshells in my strawberry beds, the hazelnut shells, peanut shells. I use those in my strawberry beds because I find that it stays throughout the whole season. Those are perennials, so I know that they're not leaving. And I do a good 4-inch layer of that. So when you're thinking of your mulch, you're not just doing a very thin layer. You want to do 2 to 4 inches, depending on what you already have sitting there. Yeah. We also have cover crops. It is not too late to do some cover cropping, because the idea is that you do want them to die down and work itself back into your soil. So all of these are fantastic and can be planted now. And they will do just fine. And the best part about the green manure, some of them will stick around through the winter. And then what you'll do is in February, you will gently work them into the soil. And then it'll be ready for you to plant at the end of April or May. You might have some things in there, some, thicker stalk and things. Just break those up in your cultivation area and in early spring. It really works well because you're keeping the ground covered, and we want to keep something covering it in the winter. For all the reasons I said before, water retention, nutrients retention, keeping all of those good critters in your soil, which you want in there. And then also working it in the spring, it adds that it's a compostable. So you're creating compost in it and green manure in the place you are planting. I would rotate them from year to year. So say you did Austrian winter peas one year, maybe switch to vetch the next year, and then maybe do oats the next year, and then rotate it back to peas. You don't want to have the same thing there, just in case there's some kind of fungus or virus or any kind of pest that really likes them, because then you're just becoming a host for that pest. So you do want to rotate, just like you would rotate your garden. But I love all of these. One of the ones I use quite a bit, I have used oats quite a bit, and I do 2 different things. So I will grow an oat patch, right? And then harvest those. And I like to do hulless oats. Hulless means it doesn't have that outer hull on the actual grain itself, so you don't have to harvest that off. I do hulless. And And then I do another one with some of the oats that I've just grown in the spring. So springs through summer. So it kind of just feeds itself, which is, it just works really, really well. I really like doing that. Okay, let me check questions. Oh, okay, here we go. I planted Rainier strawberries this year and had gigantic leaves. Yes, sounds about right. Should I add fine wood chips now to lower the nitrogen in the soil? If you planted them this year, that's one question I have that will depend on my answer. If these are ones you say you planted them 2 or 3 years ago, our growing season this year was so weird, right? Everything was about 4 to 6 weeks late. And so the fact that your leaves were really big, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Oh, this spring. Okay. That's totally normal. So the first year of growing, it's okay for them to do that, because what you're doing is you're trying to encourage the root systems to take hold. So that first year, I have some strawberry plants that I also have put in this first year. I take off all the berries. I don't want them working on fruit production. I want them working on solid roots and plant. And so if they are doing that, then you're doing awesome. For next season, what I would do is I would make sure that you don't need to add more fertilizer to it. They are acid loving plants. So there is actual like acid loving fertilizers, like the blueberry fertilizer and things like that. Use that instead. If you do add a fertilizer, if you could add wood chips to that, that's another bonus, right? It's just going to keep the weed suppression down. It also helps when finding kind of where the strawberries are. Just make sure you leave a rim that the wood chips are away from the base of those plants. Okay, because you don't want those to rot out, because they do like to sit up a little bit in general. So yeah, good question. Yeah, they should be producing pretty good next year. Sounds like they were very green this year. But again, our season is very funky because we've been about 4 to 6 weeks behind because of our rain. All right, so kind of talked about this. These cover crops, again, they are going to die off once we get into the cold part of winter, and we want that to happen. That's a good thing, because then it's easily worked right back into the soil, and you're creating that compost right in the place that you're working. And kind of gauge it for whenever you're going to plant. So say you do early peas, right? You do snow peas or snap peas or something. Very early, say you plant them at the end of March or something, you're going to want to kind of start working that into the soil in January. End of January is probably a good time to do that, because you want to give it time to kind of break down into the soil. And about a month and a half, 2 months is enough for it to start really breaking down, and that works really well. And then you can also leave it, you can just leave it there, and it just becomes a nice mulch on top. That way you don't have to put anything there, and it'll break down as it goes. It attracts a lot of different native pollinators, and that's also a good thing, because you want pollinators in your yard because they do a lot of things. We've got native wasps that are fantastic. I saw some really beautiful ones this season. We have native flies, native bees, a lot of native pollinators that aren't a bee or a wasp or a fly. Even hummingbirds will start digging around in that stuff because insects will be there, and they like to eat insects as well. So it's a good thing to have that in there. Some resources that you can go to. The WSU extension here has a great resource on cover crops. Tilth Alliance has a great one on mulch, if you want to dig a little bit deeper in those things. OSU, the Wintering Gardening Pacific Northwest, is wonderful. WSU, Washington State University, and OSU, Oregon State University, their agricultural resources are top notch. Okay, so, if you ever have a question about something, they have research papers, they have easy to use guides. They are wonderful, wonderful resources. I cannot speak more highly of them. And we do have the WSU extension here in Puyallup. And, you can make appointments to go see them. The Master Gardeners program is in Puyallup as well. it's just, we have this wonderful resource at the tip of our fingers, and in our own backyard here in Pierce County. So we are really, really lucky. But those are some great resources that you can utilize. And when you get this, when you want to see this later on after this webinar, all you got to do is kind of hover on it and click it. Yours will come up with the website, and you'll click on the website. But this is what it looks like. So what is a cover crop? It goes through everything in very, very much detail. However, it's totally ready to use for anybody. Okay, and then they have pictures of the oats. Those are exactly what my oats look like. Barley. I have grown barley, a hulless purple barley, and quite frankly, it grew like gangbusters, and it was really lovely to eat in soups, making soups. So this was the WSU1, the resource. Let's see if I go back to slides. Well, let me do it. There we go. All right. So I will go ahead and make that full slideshow again. So you can click on any of those and it'll take you right to that resource. When it's in your PDF form or in the slideshow form, you'll hover over it, or you can click on it, and then it'll bring up the website right there. So all of these are great. The Center for Preservation Arts, is really great for so many reasons. Preserving food is very important. It's a sustainable art. It's really a lovely thing, and so that you can go in there, and there are wonderful resources in there too. Winterizing. I'm going to go ahead and bring, can I do that? Nope. Winterizing your area. Some plants will need extra attention, which, is, see if I can bring up the chat there so I can see it. Perfect. The perennials we love so much and that create the wonderful bounty that we love, they need to be mulched. So they need to you need to give them a little blanket over their root systems for success. All the berries, your raspberries, absolutely put a little mulch over those crowns. Not something that's super heavy though. You could just use some cardboard over it. They don't like to have wet feet, which means they don't like to be in water. So cardboard works great. Anything that's going to sop up water is going to work really well. You're going to want to, what I do with my rhubarb, I have a Rubbermaid lid, quite a large one. And I put a little bit of compost, a little bit of mulch in the area. But then I've learned that because my water table is so high, the bin was destroyed years ago, but the lid is still intact. And so I put that Rubbermaid lid on top of it because for my water table is so high that I don't need the water. I don't need more water on my rhubarb. I don't want it to rot out. So I actually cover it. I mulch it. I put compost in there, and then I put that on top of my rhubarb crown. And that has been super successful. I have to say, for me, because my water table is so high, it's kept, I had 3 rhubarb. One of them did rot out because of the water damage and the rot from the water system. So that's worked really well. With the asparagus, put a mulch on there, keeps them toasty. I have my asparagus in a giant raised bed. And so I put some of that chicken bedding on there. And they love that, especially because every time it rains, it kind of puts that nutrients back in. And this is cured chicken bedding with the manure in it, not fresh. And it just kind of permeates. So I'm adding nutrients and a blanket all at the same time. There's lots of berries that could benefit from that. Blueberries, mulching around that base. Blueberries do enjoy that. Apples, they like a little uptake of nutrients. So you could compost around the root base for the apples, which then also becomes a little bit of mulch around there, leaving the leaves. So some things just need to be winterized. My strawberries, I'll I'll put mulch underneath. Some of your fruit trees will need to get pruned when they're dormant, right? So as soon as all the leaves fall, we've had our harsh frost, they look bare, we've got naked trees. That's the time we're going to start pruning, and we'll be having a pruning webinar a little bit later from now at the EnviroHouse, which is going to be great. And so you're going to want to prune your fruit trees, you're pruning your grapevines, you're cleaning out your cane fruit, you know, your blackberries and your raspberries, and maybe you have loganberries and tayberries, you know, all those things. You want to really clean them out, prune them back. You know, if you have raspberries, you're going to loop them around, you know, unless they're the upright cane. Flower bulbs, you're going to want to mulch those. They need that blanket. They keep them nice and toasty for success in the spring. And the perennials, a lot of them will die back. So, you know, I have quite a few perennial herbs that will die back, you know, and I just put a nice little protective mulch on top. You know, my thyme, I do mulch my thyme and my oregano, and, you know, I'll mulch my mint, and, you know, there's a lot of things that will die back that aren't present in winter, and I mulch those. So anything that is going to die back and that will benefit from a nice blanket of mulch, go ahead and do that. Take a walk around your yard, you know, and make a list, you know, a mental list in your head about where you're going to need to place that mulch for winterizing your yard. Okay, we're doing good. All right. All right. So if you have any questions, again, thank you for coming to the webinar. You know, I am representing Garden Spheres today, and there is our address, 3310 North Proctor. Saturdays are a great time to go because the Proctor Farmer Market is happening at the same time. So you can go to both. Again, they are wonderful. Everybody knows so many things. They will be ready to help you answer any questions and help guide you in your gardening journey. And then here are the resources, some more resources, you know, me, again, Garden Spheres there, all the EnviroHouse contact information, Janda, the phone numbers, how to register for the EnviroHouse workshops and webinars, and then where you can find the recorded webinars and how-to videos. There's quite a few how-to videos with many of us who've done the webinars and done workshops. We've also hopped on and we've got some how-to videos on there that can be very helpful for folks. And then it has, you know, how to get on the listserv. And that is super handy. And then the Tacoma Urban Forest, that's starting, woohoo! Getting those coupons is starting in October. So that's very, very exciting. We love free trees. And then you can use those through March, which is great. We love getting that tree canopy here in Pierce County and for Tacoma. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. All right.
So I'm not seeing how to get this menu bar is different than the one on my laptop, and I am not seeing how to get my image back up, so I won't do that.
Oh, that's okay.
So I'm going to put a couple more things in the chat. I don't know on the resources for Tacoma Urban Forestry. I did not get an answer back if they are doing the tree coupon program. It isn't on their website yet. So that may or may not happen. I'm not sure. And then our workshops are not online yet. I will be putting those up this weekend, and they should get approved by Monday or Tuesday to be ready for registration for October. We are doing how to make your own rain barrel. We're bringing that back. That will be on site October 1st. And we will be doing on October 8th. We will be doing one on how to do your own self-energy audit. And I'm looking for my list here. And then Jenny is doing how to do more winterizing on your garden, excuse me, on October 15th. And then she'll also cover planning for spring and probably some of the same on cover crops, but that will be on the 15th.
Yep.
And then we're doing a new one on water heating systems that will cover all different kinds of water heating systems with costs and comparisons for electric, natural gas tankless, solar, and heat pump technology. That will be the 22nd. Pruning landscape trees on the last Saturday in October with John Wakowiak, who's certified arborist. And then Jenny will do pruning and care of fruit trees on November 5th. So lots coming up yet. And then also, I don't remember, did you have on the screen the tool library?
I didn't. No, I'm so sorry about that. Yeah, no, I didn't have the tool library on there.
Throw that in the chat.
Yep, they are wonderful.
Yeah, if you haven't used the tool library, be sure to check out, they're open a few hours on Wednesday and Saturday, I believe. And then they're also doing on Thursday afternoons, they're doing a short Fix-It fair.
Yep.
With Waste Not Washington. So I think that is most of what we need to share. And I will go ahead and put the register for workshops. And then I think that's it. If anybody has any other questions before we finish, this is your chance. Otherwise, Territorial seed catalog. Did you mention that?
I didn't. I didn't. It's good.
I thought that
it's good. It's useful. It's got a nice graphic for planting.
Yeah, the winter catalog that has the list of seasons and what you can get and when to plant.
Yeah, it has that really nice graphic with like the windows of when you can plant items. Yeah. And if you do it by seed or by start. So that is helpful. That the graphic is really great.
Okay, well, I hope you can take a chance to visit Gardens Fair, and thank you to Jenny, and we will be back next week. No,
yeah.
not week.
I'll see you on the 15th.
Well, with you on the 15th, and I'll be back on October 1st with.
Yep.
And the EnviroHouse is open Thursday through Sunday now from 11 to 5, and I'm working remote on Wednesday. So
yeah,
you can have a chance to come by and visit, and thank you for attending.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.
See you next time.
Yep.
Bye.